Let's take a journey. Close your eyes. Listen to the sound of my voice. We're going back in time. I'm going to mention milestones, and if you remember where you were, just nod your head. Close your eyes. Here we go. 2008. The first African American is elected President of the United States. Do you remember that night? 2001, September 11th. Where were you when the towers fell? 1999. Y2K. The world was going to end. Did you have your bottled water? 1992. Bill Clinton is elected president. Did you vote for him? Did you vote for Ross Perot? 1990. Operation Desert Storm. The first Gulf War. We've just gone back 25 years. That's over 9,000 days. Open your eyes and look at me. That's how long my father battled Parkinson's and dementia. 9,000 days. Every morning he woke up, opened his eyes, and knew he had a disease that was going to kill him. He didn't run from it. He fought it head on. He and my mother battled it until the end. That's why I do what I do. That's what drives me. That's why my mission is to improve quality of life. No one in this room is more than twice removed from this. Parkinson's, ALS, stroke, cancer, traumatic brain injury, developmental disabilities. Each of us has a tie. It's okay for you to be thinking about them while I'm talking. Let's talk about life-changing moments. We've all had them. Here's a couple that stand out for me. Number one, 1995. I sat on a plane next to a girl. Happened to look her in the eyes, and I knew. And the first thing I said to her before we took off was, "You are going to love living in Texas." 20 years, 3 kids, a mortgage, and a small company later, we're still going strong. Number 2, 2010. I was standing in a barn watching my father try to ride a horse. I wasn't there when he was 44, trying to figure out why his fingers were shaking. And the doctor said, "Roger, you have Parkinson's." I wasn't there for the follow-up visits. He and Mom in the waiting room. He would lean over to her and say, "I'm not supposed to be here. I feel fine. These guys are all old and sick." I was there in 2010 in a barn for Dad's horseback riding therapy as he shuffled up the ramp to get on his horse Lucky. And the 2 young girls that were on his side with a belt trying to hold him up as he was hunched over because the progression had gotten so bad. I didn't realize how bad it had affected me until my son, Dad, what's wrong? Is it Papa? Yeah, buddy, it is. There's nothing we can do about the disease, but whatever he and Mimi need, by God, we're going to get it for him. I didn't realize it, but that was the moment, from my father shuffle to my sprint, to change his quality of life. So, after we got back to the house, after horseback riding therapy, Mom was getting ready to go out and work out. She had made a commitment, like so many family caregivers, to keep my father at home. By the way, if you're ever in Abilene and you see a 70-year-old running 5Ks and mud runs, make sure you say hi to Rita for me. So Mom goes to work out, and Judy, the caregiver, comes, as she always did. And she says, "Scott, I wish there was something your father could do instead of sit and watch TV. I really wish there was something he could do with his hands." I thought, surely there's got to be things to do. So I got online and started looking. The things that I found, he physically couldn't hold anymore, or he just wasn't interested. So I sketched up what I wanted to make. And when the kids and I got home, we made it. We went to Michael's and Home Depot and Lowe's, and we bought things from the companies that he had worked at his whole life, so he would recognize them and want to fiddle with them. And he loved it for about 10 minutes, and then he got bored. And my mother loved it until Dad got bored. And she called and said, we need more. We need more. Okay. So I changed what I wanted to do. I changed the design, and I did it so we could slide boards in and out, so Dad could do what he wanted, when he wanted, that met his abilities, his physical abilities. And that was the design. And I started calling friends, started calling people for advice, saying, help me incorporate things in. I called a friend of my wife's, who's a geriatric care manager, and I said, Kate, here's what I'm doing for Dad. Here's what I've done. Here's what I plan to do. Give me some ideas, please. And she said, Scott, no one's ever done what you've done before. You could really help a lot of people. And I said, Kate, that's fantastic, but just tell me what I need for Dad. And she did. And I made more things, and that was the end of it. Until a few weeks later, she called back. And she said, Scott, do you remember how you felt that day in the barn? Yes. Do you remember how you felt when you were desperately trying to find something online for your father? Yes. Now imagine the millions of families doing the exact same thing. And that was it. I looked at my wife. I said, we need to do this. And she said, okay, let's do it. So, no funding, no background, just a simple desire and mission to make sure that no one was going through what my family was going through. The first thing I did was teach myself Google SketchUp. It's a free 3D modeling software. I had to design a product. And then I went out to round up manufacturers. I went from place to place around the country. I would walk in with pieces of paper and a story to tell. And they'd look at me and they'd say, I'm sorry to hear about your dad. You really are passionate about this. Come back when you've got some volume. It went that way a lot. Most times. Then one by one, we started to line people up. The reason, they all had a personal tie. Each of them was going through what my family was going through. They could visualize their loved one, the wife with Alzheimer's, the husband with the stroke, the child who had a traumatic brain injury. They could visualize them using the system we were about to make. So we started making prototypes. I sent them around the country. Assisted living, skilled nursing, home health, home care, families. I called them all. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you don't like. This has got to be right. After a year, we were ready. The first production units showed up at my front door. I loaded them into the car, and I started driving from place to place. I would walk in most times without an appointment, and I would see whoever would see me. And I would pull the activity system out of my bag and tell them the story. And I would show them. And they could visualize a resident, a client, a loved one using the activity system that I had made for Dad. Then they'd say, you need to go meet so-and-so. So I would drive over and meet so-and-so. And then it repeated itself. And before too long, I had so-and-so'd my way to the corporate office of one of the largest care companies in the world. And 99 days after we took it out, we signed our first contract. And more contracts came after that. As the contracts came, so did the questions. Scott, do you teach people how to do activities? Scott, do you teach people how to communicate? How to engage? No. Don't you guys know how to do that already? I got online, started looking for classes to refer them to. And then Mom and Dad came to visit. It was the last Christmas before he passed away. And one day in particular, I'll never forget. We had moved from the basement to a small office. Dad was having a bad day. Couldn't really understand what he was saying. He was moving sluggish. So I put him in the car, and we went to go see the office. I'm asking him questions and can't understand what he's saying. And he looks at my dashboard, and he raises his hand. He saw my business card. And he says, as clear as day, that's your name. And I looked at him, and I said, you're right, Pop, and it's next to your initials. I had named my company after my father, his initials. We got back to the house after the office. Mom, working out, was going to test the new iPod that Santa had just brought her. She went for a run. Dad is sitting in a chair, and I notice him start to rock. And he's trying to get up, and he's mumbling, Dad, what's wrong? Dad, what's wrong? I couldn't tell what was wrong. Then he stopped. Then I realized why he stopped. Actually, I smelled it. He had to go to the bathroom. So I scooped him up, and we got into the bathroom and realized we needed a shower. Now, all the caregivers that hear this can agree. You can change your children, bathe your children, no problem. You can help change and bathe nieces and nephews. But the first time that you bathe a parent, it changes who you are, and it changes who they are. So we're in the shower, and I'm cleaning him off, and I catch a glimpse of his eye. I can see his face right now. I see the fear and the embarrassment, and I hear him say, I'm sorry. He was apologizing to me. I'm sorry because I couldn't understand what he was trying to tell me. It was my fault that we were in the bathroom in the shower, not his. That was the day my company began training caregivers. How to communicate, how to engage. I surrounded myself with experts from around the country. We've written books. We teach classes online. We built a university. No family caregiver should go through what my family went through. All I ever wanted to do was help my dad. I didn't want to have a company. I didn't plan to have a company. But my father's fight lives on in that company today. My wife, we talk about the early days when it was just she and I. There's one day in particular that she brings up often. We were on the bedroom floor counting and rolling coins to take to the bank to pay our mortgage because our corporate customers weren't paying us on time. I still have the Post-it notes in my drawer at the office in my desk. Scott, we only have $1,100 in the account. Scott, we only have $350 in the account. It's funny, as the amount got smaller, the handwriting got bigger. We were all in. Like every family caregiver is all in. There's no going back. So while I've been talking, you've probably been thinking about that loved one. A father, a mother, a husband, a wife, a child, a sister. They are my father. They are my father. You are my brothers, my sisters, and my mothers. Together, we can change their world. Not by bringing world peace or solving climate change, which will happen, but today by bringing a smile. 5 minutes of a smile, 10 minutes of laughter, 15 minutes of conversation. That's how we're going to change your loved one's world. In fact, that's how we're going to change your world, by breaking down the walls of isolation that every caregiver and every loved one knows. The walls of isolation have to come down. When we take that 5 minutes of smiles and multiply it times 10 people, times 100, times 1,000,000, times 100 million, now you have started to change the world. My gift to you is to get to know your loved one again. Not that they are, but the person they were. If you visit startsomejoy.com, download the personal history form. Fill it out. Get to know them. Not that person watching TV today. but the person they were their whole life. Maybe on Wednesday nights they went bowling. On Fridays they played poker. Maybe they were a teacher, or a doctor, or a pilot, or a teamster, or a Marine, or a homemaker. Send that form to your friends and family. Everyone has different memories of your loved one. When you put them all together, it forms a picture. And when you have that picture, you can communicate and you can engage. And then, instead of embarrassment and fear and I'm sorry, you can see a smile and a thank you. And maybe, just maybe, you can see one more I love you in that smile. Thank you very much.